Trigger, it's picking up. Lucha Bros versus Young Bucks. Many have tried, none have outdone us. Name a top 10 team, none are above us.
The hundreds in attendance and the thousands listening at home.
Sean Spears is crazy.
Get ready to podcast.
Attacking Cody with a jazz and
Welcome back, everybody, to another exciting edition of Wednesday night's main event. I am your host, as always, All Elite Andy, and I'm joined by my boy, pro wrestling fan, anime nerd, beanie man, big match AJ. AJ, how are you doing?
I'm doing all right. Just the same old. Nothing much going on. How are you?
I'm good, man. Chilling. It was another exciting episode of AEW's Dynamite. We're a little bit later than usual due to experiencing a couple of technical difficulties as we're trying to learn our way around our new setup. So bear with us as we work through these things and any hiccups that we may have. But hey, another great episode of Dynamite. Finally, Dynamite's back from the break. What are your thoughts overall of the show?
I thought it was a good show. Solid. Nothing really stood out to me as amazing, but nothing stood out to me as terrible either.
Yeah, I mean, there were a couple of really good matches. I thought the main event was really exciting and well done. Yeah. I also thought that just overall the pacing of the show was pretty well done. There were a couple of points that I did mention where I felt like they had done too many interview segments matched with commercials and videos that really you've seen be a draw or a downside to AEW. And so it definitely felt that here on this week's episode as well. But outside of that little 30-minute, 20-minute stretch, the rest of the show was really great from top to bottom. I don't know if I'm necessarily with you in saying that no match stood out because Darby and Cody was really great. I also thought the main event was really great, so we'll get to everything. But overall, I thought it was a really well-done show. I thought an interesting close, maybe not the big, super epic storyline angle thing that we might have been expecting coming out of the first show of the year, but still a really good show nonetheless and a good finish, I think. It sets the tone for maybe a storyline we'll see continue for a little while at least.
Yeah.
Let's go ahead and just start at the beginning of the show. We open up with them just talking about how the elite might not be so elite anymore, especially not thus far in AEW. They really just haven't been competing to the standards that people would have for a group known as the elite of professional wrestling, and it's worth wondering. So a decent little segment they had here, and then they just ran through the matches that we had lined up for the show and opened up with Cody Rhodes versus Darby Allin.
Yeah.
And this was an interesting way to open the show. I mean, they had a really solid hype package and promo for Darby as well, and just a really hyped match that I'm surprised got the amount of time it did, and just because we were unsure if it would get a clean finish or anything. So it was a really well done thing.
Yeah. My only issue with this match, my biggest issue, I should say, is that I wish it wasn't on first because I would have rather the main event or the title match have gone on first. But other than that, it was a good match. It was solid. They told the story with Arn Anderson. I would have preferred Darby Allin win, but I'm not at all upset about it.
Yeah, and I think what they did was they set the tone for the whole coach role in AEW, or at least with Arn Anderson. Arn signaling for Cody to throw up the knees as Darby is looking to hit the coffin drop, which essentially set Cody up for the victory here. So they're definitely teasing the idea of that here within AEW. So that was interesting as well, in a good way to just introduce it. I thought that it was not the most well-done thing, as I said on social media and Twitter, that we just saw Cody throw up the knees when Darby went for the coffin drop on the apron. So it was weird that he then felt the need to signal it once again. But outside of that, it was a well-done match, a good way for Darby to look good while losing, and that's been really important within AEW, something we've noted needed to happen. So
yeah.
And then from there, we get SCU doing an interview, and they get interrupted by Sammy G. Sammy G says that Christopher Daniels just doesn't have it anymore. This leads to Daniels challenging Guevara to a match for next week's show, so that's an interesting matchup, and hopefully a win for Guevara there, because that's a good notch on his belt, I think.
Yeah, it would be. And Sammy G keeps getting in the ring with these more experienced guys, and I think that's just going to keep helping him.
Yeah, it's all about elevating guys like Sammy G, I think, to that next level and really showcasing what he can do. And I think a match with Daniels will be just that. You'll see, holy shit, this guy is really good. And some of the stuff that he can do is really great. So I'm excited to see that.
Yeah, me too.
From there, we then get the Women's Championship match, and if you follow us on social media, you know that I was not happy with the placement of this match. They really haven't done a good enough job, I think, at promoting the women the same way they're trying to do with the tag teams, and I think that they've got a good division. They've created good storylines and stuff throughout the division, but as far as promoting it on a scale the same way that they do as the tag teams in the men's division, they really aren't doing that. They really pushed the fact that the tag team championship match was in the main event because it was important. So it feels really weird when we then throw our women's title match on second. Nonetheless, these women did a pretty decent job. I thought that the finish was a little bit clunky. AJ argues with me. He says it was totally fine. I think that it did, if you ask me, look like they might have closed it a little too early. Like maybe Riho was going to do a little bit more because it looked like Britt was transitioning into rolling Riho up and sort of maybe just not going home at that moment. Riho looked really confused. Britt looked kind of pissed. But I could be totally wrong. But just the way everything
You could be right. I didn't notice anything wrong with it, but you could be right. I'm totally open to being wrong about this, but no, I didn't see anything wrong with the match. My biggest complaint is like what you were saying. The promotion of this match was terrible. Why would you put this on second? And you had the division being really red hot for a while at the beginning of AEW, and it feels like it's cooled down quite a bit, and I don't like that.
Yeah, well, and we get it a little bit later when Britt Baker interrupts Riho, but we really haven't seen Riho very much within AEW, so it was just weird, and it was a weird finish. I think the tough part with Riho is she can put on great matches, but she's constantly winning with roll-ups. It's hard for fans to get behind someone who can't ever win with their finish or a finish, you know?
Yeah.
But nonetheless, a good win. We get Riho retaining the championship, going up against Chris Statlander next week. I do think they could have done a little bit more to explain to the fans what was going on here. I think they referenced it at the open of the show, but they could have done more throughout this match to sort of explain that why the original Chris versus Riho match didn't end up happening. Because for fans who might have missed that intro, they would be a little bit confused. But still, decent enough match. Post-match, we get Nyla Rose attacking Riho and putting Riho through a table. None of the other women come to the save for Nyla, or for Riho, I should say. So
I thought that was a little unnecessary. I'm not really sure what that does because we have Chris Statlander and Riho, then we have the Britt Baker and Riho thing, and we have Nyla and Riho. So it's kind of like everybody hates Riho. I don't know what's going on here, but we need to pick one person for the focus to be.
yeah, and we did just see Nyla come off suspension for doing something very similar to this. So then to just essentially go right back into that wheelhouse was definitely a weird thing to see, if you ask me.
Yeah, I just thought it was unnecessary altogether.
But again, a decent match, a decent fatal four-way to showcase what each of these women have and what they bring to the table in that division. So good enough, I guess. From there, we get an interview with Joey Janela, or what was supposed to be an interview with Joey Janela. He is quickly interrupted by his former love interest, Penelope Ford, who hits Joey with a low blow. He apparently didn't hear her come up to him, which I do think if you break down the logistics of this, it's a little bit weird how she managed to come onto the side, and either he didn't see it and the one interviewing him didn't mention anything to him either. So
I thought this was a little awkward. I'm happy that we're getting this feud. I really am. But I don't like that this is the way that we're kicking it off.
well, I was definitely glad that he was at least being low blowed, because at first I thought he was just trying to do something funny, like a weird.
Yeah, me too.
Try to get something weird over, but then I realized that he had been low blowed and who it was, so I was excited with that. But for a second, I did think that it was the bunny too, because I couldn't tell with the lipstick and everything.
Yeah, me too.
I had thought that it might have been the bunny, and then I realized that it was Penelope, so we were definitely getting that Kip Sabian feud, and I'm excited for that, because that should be interesting. They did a decent job. The commentary needs to do a little bit better, and it's nice that Jim Ross at least sets Excalibur up for it, to be like, hey, what's going on? Because that's Excalibur's job, is to explain to the fans why these things are happening, and he should at least be referencing, like, oh, that's his former girlfriend, or something to explain more to the fans maybe what's going on here.
Yeah. All we got was, that's Penelope Ford and Kip Sabian. And it's like, well, I know that, but...
yeah, he was like, that's super bad Penelope.
Yeah.
And then he's like, oh, and that's super bad Kip. Like, it was just definitely strange, but not bad. Because I'm excited to see this feud. This could be a money feud. So this could be one of the better feuds of the year, going into the beginning of the year if they do it right. So I'm excited for that. And then we get a Dark Order video package. They're talking about the Exalted One and that the Elite has fallen, and they say that we will see the true reach of the Dark Order. I imagine this is hinting to the fact that Hangman must be joining the Dark Order or will become involved with them in some way. I hope not. But yeah, a short, sweet segment from the Dark Order, at least not taking over the main event this week. So that's fine. And they're obviously building to that Hangman potentially joining them, probably will destroy them and then go to war with them type thing.
Yeah, it's got to be Hangman, right? It's not something I'm looking forward to, but it's something that I can't think of any other option here. And they were hinting at it on being the Elite, and his alcoholic gimmick on being the Elite has crossed over. So now I'm only certain that it's going to be Hangman.
Yeah, that he's at least going to somehow get involved, and maybe he doesn't end up being the one who joins them. Maybe they bring someone from the outside to be like a leader to feud with Hangman down the line. But it's different, I guess. I'm waiting and seeing here. But
I'm skeptical, yeah.
Yeah. From there, we get Jon Moxley taking on Trent in an 11-minute match. Moxley picks up the victory. I didn't think this did too much for Trent, in all honesty. They did give him a little bit of a offensive run in this match, but there was nothing in it too much that really sold me on the idea that this match would that Trent would win or anything. Yeah. But the other thing I had an issue with that I mentioned was the roll-up spam in this match, as we've seen in pretty much every match up to this point. And when you're doing things in every single match, or you've seen it done twice on the show already, maybe pull it out of your match and do something else, because that can be seen as a problem.
I'm a mark for those spots, so I'm totally biased, but I agree with you in principle.
Yeah, I just think there's quite a few things like that, like the dives, and I don't want to sound like that guy, because you know there's people out there who just harp on that stuff all day long on social media anyway, so I really don't need to join that club, but it is worth noting, we see these things throughout the entire show. It does take away the meaning and the believability of, oh, Trent's going to pick up a win here, because I've seen that roll-up thing at least twice already, so I just don't believe it in Trent anymore. Nonetheless, a decent showing for Trent. He did get to do a couple of things offensively, and Moxley got to show what he can do as well. So,
yeah, it was a solid match. Nothing really to complain about here. It was just a good match. I kind of disagree with you. I don't know that it did nothing for Trent. I thought Trent looked good against a top guy, so I thought in that regard it was pretty all right. But no, nothing mind-blowing or anything.
Well, I mean, he just didn't do a whole lot, and even, he did look good against the top guy. He lost in pretty quick fashion. I did notice that they did the whole thing where he had to get beat with 2 finishes in order to take the victory here, which was definitely evident. And it's a trope in professional wrestling where if you have to get hit with 2 finishes, you're a stronger guy. So I did notice that much, but I just, and I didn't need them to give me too much with Trent. I just needed, and there was one spot or two where you had that a little bit of believability. I think when Orange Cassidy got involved and it got Moxley a little bit off of his game, and we really saw that potential for Trent to win there. I think people got bought into it for just a brief second, but I would have just liked to see a little bit more for the guy, or because you can tell that he's someone that they want to focus on in that singles aspect, because he's getting featured in this way, and it's almost like I would like to see someone like Penta featured in this way. He's in a tag team, but instead we're getting it with Trent. So if we're going to get it with Trent, there's just a little bit more I think that could have been done in this match with Moxley, because in the match with Darby and Cody, Darby got so much to really hang his hat on coming out of this, whereas Trent, he just really put on a good match with Moxley. You can't even talk too much about his offensive aspect of this one.
Yeah, no.
So post-match, we get Sammy Guevara. He comes out with a surprise for Moxley, which leads to Chris Jericho coming on the screen, offers being a partnership with Moxley, offers him 49% of the inner circle, and offers him a Ford GT if he joins. This was cool, but it was definitely a showing of like Jericho couldn't make it to the show tonight.
Yeah. But that's not the worst thing. No. He's the champion. He's not going to be on every show because of his schedule. But he's been on most of them. So it's not like...
And Mox closes out the segment basically saying, we'll get your answer next week to this awesome opportunity, I guess. He basically just says that he's admired Jericho and looked at Jericho as a friend for some time now, and because of this, obviously, he's interested in this potential relationship. I think it's a decent enough build, but I just don't think there's too much believability to Mox
No.
jumping to the other side. So in that respect, it's a little bit weird to see
Yeah,
it
I
just
agree.
continue after this week.
And when he said, I'll answer it next week, there were audible boos because nobody believes that he's going to join.
So
If he had
why
just said,
bother dragging it out instead of just
yeah,
giving us the answer this week? It basically, like I said, was just the whole Jericho's not going to be here, which is understandable, but still.
yeah.
Nonetheless, after that, we get Sammy G. He sticks around for his match with Dustin Rhodes. A pretty quick one here. Sammy picks up the victory after Bryce is distracted trying to help Sammy out of being stuck in the corner. Dustin going for his coveted low blow spot in the corner, which was a bit interesting, I guess, because in turn, Bryce is trying to help Sammy, and we get Jake Hager, who runs in and low blows Dustin, an homage to Hager's run in Bellator, where he just recently was disqualified in a fight.
I don't know if it was an homage, but
no, dude, it was definitely paying like some type of tribute to this, because there's no way. It's a tongue-in-cheek, like, haha, this is stupid, but he definitely did the exact thing that he did in the cage, where he kneed the guy in the balls, so...
okay, well, then
He
I'll
grabbed
roll
him and
with it.
did the exact thing. So I was just like, okay, Hager doing his MMA gimmick. But yeah,
Yeah,
a win for
it was
Sammy
a fun
G.
match.
So
It was a fun match. Sammy
Dustin hit a sick freaking Canadian pile driver
Yeah,
on
on the
Sammy G on the
apron.
apron, which they were sure to point out is the hardest part of the ring. But
Hardest
dude, what
part,
a
not the
freaking
most.
move! And kudos to Sammy because you know that move is basically the guy taking it, who's performing everything for it. So
Yeah.
but Dustin looked great too. You nothing, not to take anything away from Dustin, but wow.
Yeah, it was a great match. Not a great match, but it was a good match. And the key component is that Sammy G needed to win over Dustin, and he got it. And he looks good, and he's looking good, and hopefully that trend continues with Daniels.
Yes, and so from there we go into sort of the interview segment stretch that I was complaining about, and what I would say here is just reposition some of this stuff. I know you do have,
Yeah.
or like it's tough because they seem to want to do a lot of interview segments in one show because they're trying to tell so many stories, but then you get situations like this where there's just so much in a row that it's a lot to take in and really pushes people to change the channel and tune into what else is going on, which you don't necessarily want. So. But we get first an interview with the Private Party, who are quickly interrupted by Hangman Page. He says that he could kick both of their asses because they're talking about how they're worried about him because he's drinking so much. He says they should be worried because he could kick both their asses, and he walks off with the drink that they tried to stop him from drinking. Weird storytelling here. Hangman turning to alcoholism. It's super realistic, I guess, from like the guy who's fallen from his big fight spot to now just having nothing. So
I guess, but it's one of those things where I know they were working up towards it on being the elite, but you're not showing the TV audience until you're in the middle of the angle. And it's a little weird. And I don't know that I liked it, and I thought it came off as a little awkward.
Yeah, I guess. I don't know if I would say totally awkward or what, but it wasn't the best thing in the world, that's for sure. It just really, we've just continually painted Hangman as not a main eventer, I guess.
Yeah.
And from there we get MJF, someone who is being positioned as a main eventer, and he comes out to list his list of stipulations for his match against Cody at Revolution. He says that Cody can't touch MJF before their match. He also says that Cody must beat Wardlow in a cage. And then he also talks about how Cody's going to be whipped by MJF 10 times. This was a little bit weird, a little awkward. It'll be a little awkward when it happens on television next week. So you know.
I don't know what to think about this. It's just not what I was expecting, and I mean, our friend Joseph said, like, what I was thinking, it's heelish, but it's weird. It's a weird heel thing to do, but Uh, Nonetheless, I mean, I get it. He can't touch him, and he's going to get whipped 10 times. And then is he going to touch him? Is he going to fight back? Blah, blah, blah. But he can't touch him, and I get it. But it's just going to be a little odd.
Yeah, it's gonna be strange and a little weird to see, but like I said, it's very heelish.
I was expecting him to say, "You're going to have to kiss the ring, like get down on your knees and kiss the ring."
I thought he was gonna make him bark like a dog, like Trish Stratus. That's really where I thought we were going. I was like, you're gonna be on your hands and knees like Pharaoh, and you're gonna bark like a dog. And I was like,
I
oh
would
no.
like that.
Yeah, but nonetheless, a decent set of stipulations. They kind of had themselves in a weird situation here with MJF already being offered so much and denying all of it. It was like, what could you possibly give him? So public humiliation and degradation like this makes sense, but still very strange.
Yeah.
MJF has some weird kinks. That's all I know.
Yeah, he sure does.
Like the sickness of it though is what will make people literally hate him. It's if anyone's a fan of Game of Thrones and you remember Joffrey and this evil king who just does sick and twisted things to people that just make you impossible to care for him in any way. This is kind of where we're getting to, I feel like, with this. So it'll be tough. It'll be weird. It could be a strange moment of television, but it does help build the story of MJF, and that can always be important. So
Yeah, I agree with you. It's just, I'm worried it's just going to be awkward, but I hope it's going to be well done and well told, and maybe have Cody getting up at the middle of it, and like he's about to hit him, and then he has to get back down on his knees or whatever. I don't know.
Brandy
They could make it
comes
work.
out, or Arn, or anybody, or there is a storytelling aspect to it, and I hope they utilize their social media to do a little bit of that storytelling this week. Maybe just enter into the Rhodes household where Cody's like debating and Brandy's like, why would you do this? And because they try to do so much of this anyway, that this is a time to do it.
Yeah. That would absolutely be key here, I think. Not key, but it would be very, very, it would behoove them to do this.
And worth noting, you, the movie maker, can always take heed in the fact that while the segment itself might end up being really awkward, the shots that they'll get with him slapping him in the back will add to that highlight video that they'll have to have for Evolution. So that could be one of the best put together highlight videos in professional wrestling if they do it right, just because of how the story of Cody and MJF is. Because while it hasn't been told the best based upon the way they've utilized the time and everything, I think that when you break it down into that short film version, which you get before every big fight, it could be one of the best. Like, and what I think they should do is like a short one for the pay-per-view and do like an extended cut for like almost like a documentary cut.
That'd be sick.
It would be smart to do it because they're really like. It's a great story, but it hasn't been told chronologically the best way. So if you cut it all down, it's going to be. Once they see it, they're gonna be like, "Holy shit!" So,
yeah, I totally agree with that.
Something I don't think they were saying "holy shit" in a good way, at least about, was this Jurassic Express interview. We love everyone in the Jurassic Express, but this was just a tough one. Jungle Boy gave basically his regular interview, which I didn't think was too bad, but at the very end it felt like it was almost a little scripted, or like he had been practicing what he wanted to say all day and sort of just went into it. But he'll obviously get better. Then we saw Marco go to hug the interviewer, and I don't know. That was weird. He was definitely awkwardly turned down, and then we have Luchasaurus trying to say something, but at the same time there's an entrance going on for the next match, so
and you can barely hear him. I don't know what I thought about this. I didn't think much of it, to be honest.
It was a bad interview.
It was a bad interview. Yeah, that's really all there is to it.
Bad production, so it was just you can't get past it. It's just something that's one that they'll just eat.
Just one of the learning experience, let's put it that way.
And Jungle Boy will obviously get better in segments and situations like this, with no doubt, but still something he's going to have to figure out over time.
Yeah.
And this just transitions to the entrance actually being made with Hangman joining the commentary team. He's got his alcoholic beverage in hand, which I thought was a little interesting, him being involved. I thought maybe we'd get some crazy turn at the end because we're going into the main event situation, but no, we are not. Instead, we just get Hangman on commentary, so that's cool. they run down everything about the shows, or next week's show, talking about how there will be a Memphis Legends tribute. We'll see Riho taking on Chris Statlander for the Women's Championship. We'll also see the Rhodes Brothers take on the Lucha Brothers for the first time. Sammy Guevara versus Christopher Daniels, and then Private Party versus Omega and Hangman. So a really stacked card for next week's show as well.
Yeah, and Moxley answering Jericho on top of all that.
Yeah.
So yeah, they continually give us stacked cards, and I'm always wondering, like, when are they gonna slow it down? And that's just not happened, which is great.
So it is tough though, because like I said, we just got 4 segments in a row of just basically talking. So almost 20 minutes since our last real action. Because from here we go to an interview with Riho, and she's quickly interrupted by Britt Baker, says that she didn't deserve to win. She stole the victory from her because she's never there. Britt's been there every week. Rio's been nowhere to be found. So yeah.
Yeah, and she was very, very right. Riho hasn't been around, but I mean, she didn't steal the win. She won fair and square, but she did win by a roll up, and she really hasn't been around. And Britt Baker has been there every week, like she said. And but again, it just feels like too many cooks in the kitchen to me. I don't know who we're focusing on with this Riho, with Riho right now, and I'm not really sure where we're going.
Yeah, and just the interview segment itself it wasn't bad, but it was poorly placed. I think it would have been better placed just shortly after that match. You have Riho coming to the back, not so much later in the show. At this point, if I'm Riho, I'm like changing and ready to leave. I'll just put through a table and retain my title. I'm not doing your interview. So just poorly placed. There's just so many segments like this in a row. Outside of this one minor complaint, the whole show I thought was really good, but just the formatting and the layout could have been done a little bit better. Don't be worried about doing something as simple as match segment, match segment, match segment. If you have that many segments, do that. I'd rather see match segment than you do 5 segments in a row and 2 matches in a row. Like, come on.
Totally agree.
And at times, they'd probably be better served because they just don't have time. Our main event only got 13 minutes. It was an epic match. We get the Elite taking on the Lucha Brothers. The Lucha Brothers with Pac, I should say. He is not an official Lucha Brother. But the Elite taking on the Lucha Brothers and Pac nonetheless, and the Elite picking up the victory, their first victory of 2020. A good match, a really exciting, fast-paced, good match, which you would expect from all of these guys. A great match, as AJ said. Easily probably my Wednesday night's main event because it was just so good. If you have the time, I would definitely check this one out if you don't have the time for anything else because it was a great one. And again, the Elite picking up the victories to start off the year as we would expect. And something I guess we almost forgot to cover because they didn't talk about it so much. And we're back. Thank you, everyone, for bearing with us through that momentary technical difficulties. As we talked about at the beginning of the show, they do come when we are working with new equipment, so we'll have to get that worked out. But thank you, everyone, for bearing with us. Nonetheless, let's talk about that main event a little bit more, AJ. A solid main event, a great job by all 6 men, and a really good setup here, I think, for everybody. Like I said, the Elite coming out of the year. Undefeated now, or coming into the year, I should say, undefeated. And what I was getting to before we had this disruption was the fact that they did reset the rankings, something they didn't even push too much on TV. When they talked about it, it was almost confusing because Excalibur wanted to make it clear that the career rankings would remain, but the rankings for the year were being reset. Was definitely a little bit confusing when that happened.
Yeah, it was, but as far as the match goes, I love this match top to bottom. Thought it was great. I thought the post-match stuff was also great, where Paige was invited in to celebrate with the Elite, with Cody and all of them, and he was just saying, "I'm not in the Elite. I'm not in the Elite," and just walking away, keep building slowly to that heel turn.
Yeah, and I think what he was saying, if I could read his lips correctly, was that he just didn't do anything on this show. There was no reason for him to be involved in their celebration. He's like, it's fine. I did nothing this week. Don't worry about it, which obviously just leads to that tension of him being upset and frustrated with his position in the company despite being a member of the Elite and taking this jump with all these guys. So this could be a really well done story, I think, but I just hope it doesn't become a weird way to get him involved with the Dark Order. I think you're better served just telling this story.
Yeah.
You might have accidentally walked your way into this one. You might have been planning the Dark Order one the whole time, but this is what we got, so you might as well work with it.
Yeah, and it's a great story. You have this downward spiral. He's been frustrated. Even when he's winning, he's not really satisfied with his wins. And you have this great feud that you can build up with Kenny Omega. You really don't need the Dark Order for that. And I'm hoping he is not the exalted one, but we'll find out.
Yeah, we'll have to wait and see where he falls in that Dark Order situation. Maybe we'll be totally off and he won't be involved at all. That would be pretty cool. But
Yeah.
nonetheless, a good main event. Probably my favorite match on the show. Would you say that's your Wednesday night's main event, AJ?
Yeah, I'd have to agree. That was my favorite.
Yeah, they just did such a good job. All these guys worked together so well. Pac and Omega probably had like a 3-minute stretch in the ring that has me so excited for their Revolution match.
Mhm.
It should be a great one. So
Did they announce that they're going to wrestle at
I
Revolution?
don't know for sure, but you would have to assume with the way they're booking at this point, they might be a stretch to go that long with this feud. But I'm just assuming that's where they're headed.
Maybe, yeah.
So if not, whenever they do lock up in a singles fashion, regardless, it'll be a good one. So I'm excited for that.
Yeah, me too.
Overall, though, a really great show. Nothing too much to complain about. Again, I do wish that they did a little bit more to explain what was going on with the rankings and the transition there. I did like that. I did like the venue. I thought that they had, it was nice to see something different, to go back to Daly's place and get that on television. At some points, I do wish that they were able to focus more on the crowd. I know that
Yeah.
it's tough. You don't want them just playing to the 100 people you have by that wall, but you might be better off doing that so you get that nicer shot of the whole crowd in the background, because it would have looked really cool, but it's a risky thing to do, so I understand why you don't do it that way. Totally makes sense, but still, that was the only downside to the venue. Otherwise, I liked how they also seemed to position their commercials a little bit better. They didn't, every week they've sort of shot themselves in the foot trying to start the show off with like a really long open, almost 30 minutes
Yeah.
with no commercial, and then have to pay for it on the back end of the show. Whereas in this case, this week, we definitely didn't get that. They opened the show and they went to a commercial with their first match, which isn't always a bad thing, you know.
Yeah, no, this was a welcome change with the commercials. I think we went 10 minutes in the beginning and then we got a commercial, and that was very, very, like I said, welcome change. Hope they keep up with it, because obviously this week they were not going head to head with anybody, or they were, but it was like a recap show on NXT, and who cares? So I'm hoping that it wasn't just, well, we have a free game here. We can
So
just do
we'll
whatever
just,
we
yeah,
want.
that would be totally reactionary, which is what they say they don't do. So hopefully,
Yeah.
that this is just going to be the way we would see things now. They realized that wasn't totally working and was almost hurting them in the long run of things. So, and I think they did a good job at not necessarily positioning a match needing 2 breaks. They're realizing that the picture-in-picture doesn't necessarily solve that problem. So you can't run too long of a match without going to a commercial, which is why it was smart to do that with your intro match. So a good job there. The one thing I will also note is it's tough with your main event and having no overrun and constantly going to that last minute, because I'm always like,
Yeah.
right before the finish of the match, I'm like, well, the finish should be coming soon because there's 2 minutes left on the show. And
too.
and it's fine, but it's weird.
No, it's definitely, I don't want to say a problem, because what are you going to do? It's not up to them,
Yeah.
obviously. It's a TNT move. So it's not the worst thing in the world, but they definitely need to figure out some way to maybe end the show on a
Just
different
finish
note.
more shows a little bit sooner, but it's tough because no matter how often you finish your shows earlier, if your match is running near the end and you never go to YouTube, which we don't want. I'm not saying I want that, but
Yeah.
if you never have any overrun, then people just know what to expect and when it to end. And so it's not terrible, but it's a weird thing because you don't really have this issue, at least in like WWE Raw, because usually they finish the match with like 4 minutes left, and then they do something, because they've gotten rid of the overrun. So that's why I'm comparing the two. Without the overrun, you know that they're going to be done, but they don't have the matches going down to that last minute. So it's just weird, you know.
Well, I think the overrun is back, by the way, or at least it was last week. But
Wow, you mark.
well, but yeah, you're right. You're 100% right, and they really need to figure out just some way to make it more
And maybe
clear that
like
the match isn't going to
and
go
making
home.
that comparison, I'm almost saying that maybe we're better off for it this way, because if every week
Yeah.
we just got 5 minutes of bogus storyline at the end, it would be kind of whack. So it's cool to see the alternative here.
Yeah, that's true.
But overall, a good show. A really good start to the year, I think. I think that while it wasn't some like crazy, hectic, like brand new Year's show, because who knows what's going on. I mean, at the end of the day, we didn't get Jericho here right now because you have to assume he's getting ready to go to Japan for Wrestle Kingdom. So the whole start of next week could be totally crazy. So it's interesting to see where AEW is going right now.
Yeah, it's super interesting, and like you said, it's a great way to kick off the year. Not a bad show at all. It was great. It wasn't my favorite show ever, but it was definitely far from my least.
Yeah, and a good main event and a good close. So I liked that much. Left a good taste in your mouth going into next week for sure. Well, but that covers everything for us this week. AJ, you want to go ahead and plug your social media for everybody?
You can follow me on Twitter at BigMatchAJ, and you can follow me on Instagram at AJTheFitzy.
And as always, you can follow the podcast on Twitter at All Elite Podcast. You can check us out on Instagram at All Elite Everything. You can check out our website, alleliteeverything.com. We are also on Facebook at facebook.com/AllElitePod. And as always, you can follow me on Twitter at All Elite Andy. Thank you guys for tuning in. Thank you for continuing to support us and listen every week. And hopefully we get some of these audio issues figured out and taken care of by next week. But until then, thanks for tuning in. See ya.
Bye.